Well, we're glad to see everybody here and made it through the little bit of winter that we had. And well, I hope it's more like Tennessee River instead of Illinois winters. That wasn't too much fun. Chapter 1, we're in James. Chapter 1 is mature Christians are robust. Chapter 2, we looked at mature Christians are real. Chapter 3, we looked at mature Christians are restrained. Chapter 4, mature Christians are reserved. And in chapter 5, we're going to look at mature Christians are resigned. They persevere in troubles. So, chapter 5, verse 1. Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eating. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. You have heaped treasure together for the last days. All right. Anybody got a handkerchief or a napkin? Just go, ain't talking about me. But it is. Pay close attention to how this is worded. Ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. All right. I make jokes because I'm uncomfortable as fat as I am. But I'm not doing anything about it, so guess what? I'm crazy to think I'll lose weight. But I'm saving all these clothes so when I lose weight, I'll have clothes to wear so I don't have to buy new ones. Because I was always taught, waste not, want not, right? We have to be real careful because we'll get in a hoard mentality and say, well, I'm not wasting, but I'm keeping because I'll need. Leanne sent me some kind of video. This man said, well, if we had a block of wood just this big, 5 1/4 this way and 5 1/2 that way, be perfect. The old man jumped up and ran out and went through his shop and went through a few things, and he found that block of wood, just the exact measurement. He says, I knew I saved it for something. And how many times are we saving all this stuff for something that never, ever happens? Now, here's the real thing that it's talking about. You might say, well, I'm not rich, but yes, we act rich because, most of the people in this world only has, not here, only 2 changes of clothes. How many do you have in your closet? See, I want somebody else to feel guilty like I do. And I tell you the truth, I bought some very expensive clothes at Goodwill. And that was some really nice shirts when I lost weight that other time because I didn't have any clothes to wear. Man, they were nice. I was going through them the other day trying a few of them on to see how many 100 pounds I'd have to lose to get back in them. And I noticed there were holes in them. How did I get a hole in that shirt? Moths are eating into them. I'm saving them for one day when I get skinny. You know what? Here's the thing. I'm thinking I have to provide everything. See where the mindset is wrong? Doesn't God say He takes care of that stuff? He knows what we have need of. And so what we're doing is we're hoarding up stuff when we could be blessing other people with it. All right, now I'm not talking about giving junk away. You can't give moth-eaten clothes away. You shouldn't, I wouldn't think. Don't. Reminds me of this preacher came told this joke one time. I don't know if it's a joke. I hope it was a joke. They said, Pastor, we want to give you this car. It's served our family well for the last 25 years, and we hope you get 25 years out of it too, because we're buying a new one, you know. And when you give people junk, it's not a blessing. You're giving junk, you know. Now, some people might want you junk, and that's a different case. But, I mean, here, I want to be a blessing to you. It needs a patch in the seat and a new zipper in the front. But other than that, these are a good pair of britches. You might get some use out of them. Throw them suckers in the trash, okay? But anyway, let's go back to this, and let's apply it. Because, see, James is a practical book. And this last chapter is a lot like Proverbs. It has a bunch of practical pearls in it, a bunch of fine nuggets that would be useful for us if we'll pay attention. But see, we read right there where it says, you rich men, and we say, oh, no, that ain't me. You go look in my closet, look in my garage and stuff, and you'll say, you got more junk. You ought to open a junkyard. Anyway, your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. You have heaped treasure together for the last days. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong. Matter of fact, I know it's nothing wrong with prepping. But when you think you've got to do all the prepping, you know, because it tells us in Proverbs, consider the ant, you sluggard. You know, it toils. It knows what season it's in. It knows it needs to gather food for the winter that's coming. So I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm not even talking about having, in case there's power outages or trouble with storms and stuff, having water and having generators and, you know, being prepared. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're going to prep for the whole apocalypse that's coming, and you're going to take, now you're all of a sudden thinking that you're going to control everything. And this is the kind of people that he's talking about. No, that won't be you. And that's what I've tried to explain to y'all. I think we ought to be prepared and mentally prepared, if nothing else. But I've asked some people some questions. Have you ever tried to walk around with 1,000 rounds of 45 ACP? It's heavy. Let me just say, okay, well, let's not talk about ammo. Let's talk about water. You need H2O to survive. You ever pack 5 gallons of water? You know, and how long will 5 gallons of water do you? What did the people do when Moses took them out of Egypt? They packed all that stuff. What a burden it was for them to pack all that stuff, wasn't it? For 40 years they packed that stuff. But where did the water come from? Where did the food come from? Moses didn't have to worry about, well, I got to find a place for us to camp for the next 9 months because we got to put crops in. Go to Hebrews 13, verse 6. Verse 6. Actually, let's start in the last part of verse 5. Be content with such things as ye have, for he hath said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. So that we may, and you might want to underline there, boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. Now, do you believe that? If you believe that, let's go back to James. You have heaped treasure together for the last days. Why? Obviously, you feel like God's going to forsake you. He's going to forget you. He's going to leave you high and dry. So you've got to take care of some stuff, right? And doesn't that fly in the face of God? Isn't that what God's talking about? Go to you now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that should come upon you, because you're trusting in yourself and what you can provide, and you'll never be able to provide exactly what you need. How many of you could you save yourselves? Well, if you're truthful, none of you could save yourselves. That's why you have to trust in Jesus and what he did on the cross of Calvary. If you'll trust him with your eternal soul, why can you not trust him with this mortal being that lives for a period of time? It says it's like a vapor and then it vanishes in a matter of a few years. What's a few years? Well, I can remember it was almost like yesterday that I'd be Lincoln or Augie's age and laying in Mama's or Nana's arms while I was at church listening to Brother Northcutt preach or somebody, and just loving every minute of it, you know. But that was yesterday. Now I look in the mirror now and I'm 61 years old. Not the same person that I once was, but it was just yesterday. But it really wasn't, was it? Mom and Dad's still 35 years in my mind. They're 35 years old. I guess I'll always be 35 to me. And everybody knows they're like 50 something now, but so we have to, it says, you've heaped treasure together for the last days. I know that going through this lesson, I've got a lot of cleaning up to do in my life. There's a lot of stuff I've been hoarding, hanging on to, wanting to think that one day I'm going to need it and one day I can use it. And the truth of the matter is, some of it can be blessings to others. Some of it needs to be just trashed. You know, a lot of stuff needs to be cleaned out. We live our life so cluttered that, in all honesty, it chokes the life out of us to serve God. You know, instead of us being the master of many things, our many things have become our master. You know, all the work that I went through on the car wash to keep it open and operating was because I couldn't afford for it to break down. So, but who ruled? The equipment ruled me. I was one getting up at night, going and putting diesel in the machines to keep them heated and running. And, you know, we have to be careful. We'll allow the things of this world to overtake the things that's really important. The important thing is serving Jesus Christ. The important thing is loving him. The important thing is listening to him. I find my greatest source of peace and joy. And look, this world is full of craziness right now. And when you look at it, it can weigh on you. But where I find the peace is not when I'm looking at all that stuff, but when I find myself doing exactly what God has instructed me to do. Like when I take the time to, like yesterday, I took some time to actually study again. I went to a Bible study Friday morning. It took effort. I don't get up at 5 o'clock to go. I don't get up at 5 o'clock to go fishing no more. You know what I mean? Much less to a Bible study. But those kind of things, when you do those things, it pays dividends to you spiritually. And when you do that, you find peace where you don't find it nowhere else. You know, I used to find a little peace in playing music, but the truth of the matter is, the peace don't come from playing music no more. I enjoy playing music, but there's not much peace there. The peace is doing God's will. You know, and when we learn that and start doing it, we'll find that we'll have a tendency to do that more and more because we like finding that peace. Give you an example, if you need something to worry about, we got 25 governors siding with the Texas governor, and they're all thumbing their nose to our federal government and to the president. The last time something like that happened, there was a civil war that took place, you know, and our federal government's just about crazy enough not wanting to be showed up to maybe declare something like that. You know, Tennessee's even sent troops down to Texas border to help out. How about that? You know, so you know what we need to do? We need to be worried. No, we need to be praying and just knowing that God's going to have His will. And but it goes on. Let's go back to how the rich oppress and are rebuked for oppressing the people. In verse 4 it says, "Behold, the hire of the laborers which have reaped down your fields. Which of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and then cries of them which have reaped and entered into the ears of the Lord of the Sabaoth." And that word is the Lord of hosts, better translated. "You have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton, and you have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you." People do work or do things for you, and you're supposed to pay them, and you put them off, or you tell them you can't pay them, or like Donnie's talked about, there was a man who was doing, I think it was concrete work on a house for this big mansion type house, and the guy was set out to defraud the people anyway, but the concrete guy was decided he had everything going good enough. He wasn't going to take any draws until it was done and just have one big lump, you know, and make a big hit. Well, when it came time for it, the man had filed paperwork where he didn't have to pay the laborers, and that man ended up, the concrete man went bankrupt, as well as other contractors that worked on the house. And you know, those people are going to pay for stuff like that. But if you contract with somebody for doing a job, it tells you to pay them that day, because you know they might need it for their daily bread for their family that day to feed them. And if not, you're defrauding them. Now, here it talks about we as being rich, but then it turns around and talks about like if we're the ones that are being done, to have patience. And that's what we're fixing to get into in this verse 7. All right, now I just told you that we could have been the rich folks, and probably most of us are. We could find ways, and we use such lame excuses. Well, I'm really not rich. But yet again, we really are compared to the world's view, you know. Matter of fact, it's one of the reasons why the world in whole hates us, is because we do live a lot better than any place else in the world, you know. Verse 7. "Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, or the gardeners, or the farmers, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be you also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh." All right. Be patient, therefore, brethren. For what? Well, for the rich that are oppressing you, if you fall into that category, be patient. Their day is coming. God promises you that. He's not going to forsake you. He's not going to forget what they did to you. And if you're one of the ones, you better make it right, because He won't forget that either. And then He'll exact a payment from you. But here, the husband, the farmer, as I was studying this, it says, look at the farmer who waited for the precious fruit of the earth. Why is he waiting? Well, how sumptuous it is, right? I mean, how good it is once you get the ripe fruit and the vegetables. I mean, it's good when you have fresh food. Can you shake your head? Yeah. It means you probably didn't shop at Walmart. You might have grown it yourself. But anyway, it's good. You know why else he practiced patience and waited? Anybody want to take a guess? It's awful practical. Really didn't have a choice, did he? Huh? Come on now. Y'all didn't act like you liked that answer. Well, I done prayed. God. Well, then wait. You really don't have a choice anyway, do you? Might as well be happy while you're waiting, right? Knowing that once the harvest gets here, it's going to be what? Good. Good. Worth it. I'm not going to do there's so many things you could talk about. The early rains, the latter rains. That's over in the Mideast and how their weather patterns are. But it also talks about the early and the latter rain. Christ came already, and he's coming again. And all the stuff that's being done so unjust right now, and how truth is being turned to lies and lies into so-called truth, all that's going to be righted soon. And like I was telling you, you really don't have a choice but to wait. But you might as well be smiling if you're on the right team. You know, you don't have to worry about how much you got laid up as long as you're laying on the chest of Christ. If you're close to him, he's got you covered. Just look at all the times where they were gathered together and he wanted to feed the people. What we got? Well, we ain't got nothing. What we got? We ain't got enough to feed us, much less. And there was always plenty left over, wasn't it? We worry about some of the most nonsensical things that will pass, and let the things that's eternal go unchecked. That's why it says, weep and howl, you rich men. You've been blessed, and you're trusting in your blessings instead of trusting in the one that blessed you with those things. The blessings ain't the things. It's, you know, the one who gave you those things. All good gifts come down from the Father of lights from above. Okay? Without any shadow of turning. There's no grief that comes with the perfect gift from God. Quit worrying about what society keeps telling us. Look in verse 8, and this is where we'll conclude this morning. Be you also patient. Establish your hearts. Can I see a little smile creep on your face? What does it say here? For the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. Are you really looking forward to walking the streets that are paved with transparent gold? Where there's no more suffering, no more pain, no unjustness, no Satan tempting, tormenting, no more death, no crying, no disease. Hey, sign me up. Sign me up to this wonderful place. I want to go. That sounds better than the beach, don't it? Are you really ready to go? If not, would you make today the day that you do get ready? What if you've already prepared and in all honesty find yourself kind of sliding and worried about many things? Mary and Martha, every time I talk about worrying about many things, I think about them too. One's in the kitchen worried about making sure that she's going to get supper cooked. The other one's sitting at the feet of Jesus. He says, I'm not going to take away that which she's desiring, because she's desiring the better part. Oh, wouldn't fellowship dinner be more important than just hanging out and talking about the Scripture? Not if Jesus was here. Jesus would be more important. You know what? Jesus is always with us anyway, isn't he? But yet we'll place food sometimes over the true manna of God. Are you right with Jesus? Johnny, if you'll come up and lead us in a song of invitation. If you're not right, please make it right. If you're right, but you feel like you've let stuff slide and you let worries of this world come between you and the Lord, why don't you come up and just ask Him to restore you and forgive you? He's faithful and just every time you do that. Faithful meaning He'll do it every time you ask. And He's just in doing it because Christ paid the penalty of all the sins of the world that day on Calvary, once and for all, never to be repaid again. If you will, stand to your feet. Brother Johnny.
Who at the door is standing, patiently drawing near, entrance within demanding, whose is the voice I hear? Sweetly the tones are falling, open the door for me. If thou will heed my calling, I will abide with thee. All through the dark hours dreary, knocking again is He. Jesus, art thou not weary, waiting so long for me? Sweetly the tones are falling, open the door for me. If thou will heed my call,